Welcome back to episode 5 of Brokers of Secrets. Now, in this episode, we're going to talk about how do you know what's real and what's not. Now, first off, why is this topic important? Because most of us are living in illusions. What I mean by that is not that this illusion is good or bad, it's just that it is an illusion. And what is an illusion, right? It's that it's not the true version of reality. And that this version can be manipulated quite easily. In fact, what science tells us is that we're looking at probably only 126 bits of data consciously, while per second, we actually have anywhere between 11 to 20 million bits of data coming through our sensory system. So you're really getting 126 bit out of 11 to 20 million bits. That's like 0.000063 or something like that percent of what actually is going on. Now, if you're picking up that teeny percentage of what's really going on, not to mention, you know this, how much of the light do we see in the entire light spectrum? How much of the sound do we hear in the entire frequency range? It's very limited. And that limited is not a bad thing. Is that this three-dimensional reality full of boundaries, the 3D boundaries, that's a limitation in and of itself. It creates the boundary. The limitation creates the boundary. So when you get only 126 bits, it creates the boundary of your reality. Now, why is that important? It's really important because that is your reality. And if you're living in a reality that you don't like and you don't think you can change, you don't think you can change the circumstances, you don't think you can change the relationships, you don't think you can change work or your money situation or your health or anything, if you don't think you can change, it's because you are not willing to change where that 126 bit is coming from within the 11 to 20 million bits and beyond. You really are not limiting yourself because you have to, but because you didn't know you could change that. Now, listen carefully. When I say that this reality that you're experiencing is an illusion and that you can choose, you can change, the truth is it is. It is something you can change. A lot of people blame their lives on their circumstances. Other people, oh, this person did that to me or that. Now, I'm not saying that it did or did not. What I am saying is it is now up to you who are understanding this to say no more to the old 126-bit, but to something you get to design, something you want. I remember growing up, my father, I asked him, hey, Dad, why do you not build a business? Why do you not, create something that you have more freedom of time and energy to spend time with family? Like, I hardly see you. My dad would always say, well, I didn't have the education, and my education that I did have was not accepted here, and I don't have any other skills, and I don't know people. I'm like, well, how do you even know people? You just go meet them, right? Like, he's like, well, you don't just go meet them. You've got to know the right people to meet the right people. I'm like, all I hear is excuses. And I could tell when I was a young kid, those were excuses, and those were the boundaries of his reality. He blamed it on circumstances, but what it really was that his 126 bit out of that 11 million or 20 million bits, he's picking these circumstances, saying, that's why the way it is. But for someone else, for example, those of you who are listening and watching, you get to now understand and choose differently. So we're going to break down the process of the why, what, how you need to choose differently and that you could change that, right? Because if your reality is that 126-bit that you're subconsciously picking out of the, well, actually based on your programs that we talked about the last episode, based on your programming, your 126-bit is chosen. That's the real secret. So if you're reprogramming your mind, You get to change what your reality is. And here's the thing. This is going to sound strange and out there, but there is no such thing as objective reality. It is all subjective. Even when you think there is something objective, it is still a bunch of subjective experiences and reality added together. And it is your subjective observation of the collective subjective that you may call, well, the objective. So consider that you, from this moment on, imagine, awaken, and that you are aware that, hey, this is only 126-bit. I can choose another 126-bit that's entirely different. The question is, why don't you? Right? Well, sometimes it's because of lack of skills. Sometimes it's simply because you've never been told that you could, right? And now that you're told you could, getting the skills will be the very next step. Because if you do have the skills, what happens? It allows you to go from the scarcity 126 or whatever it is that's the 126 that you don't like to something you love, something you enjoy, something you get to design. So whenever someone enter into upgrade trainings, we always start with this process called design and then resolve. Design and then resolve. And design and then resolve. It's really installing a new program that by design and removing programs that are holding you back by resolving them, right? So what does design and resolve mean? It means that you sit down, you actually design what you want. And then resolve means that when you design what you really want, something like a program, a past memory, that's a program combined with some past memories that proves this program to be real, proves the legitimacy and or justifies this program's existence. Like when my father said, well, I don't have the education, therefore I cannot start my business. I don't have the relationships, therefore I can't start the business. I don't have the capital, therefore I can't start the business. But not starting the business is actually what he is projecting, right? It is his 126-bit. He's selecting that because we select our projections unconsciously, right? And the reasons are just there to justify that 126-bit. So if my father goes and tries to build a business, which he later did, he will continue to prove himself right by sabotaging his business so that his 126-bit stays consistent. Well, that's what he did. He built some businesses. It failed. It failed really bad because he was using the same way of creating scarcity, that 126-bit, and all of the circumstances of no education, no relationships, no capital showed up as just proofs of what he's already predetermined to be his outcome. Now, to hijack this process, to completely change this process and the outcome, you have to start with the end in mind. What do you want? Now, this may seem like a simple question, but most people cannot answer that. Most people can't answer that easily, effortlessly, and come up with a list. If I say, hey, come up with 100 things and 100 experiences you want right now, how many of you can actually do it? Unless you've actually gone through our training, many people don't. And many people struggle by the time they hit 10 or 20 or 25. They stop and they're like, I don't have anything else I want. I'm not materialistic, or I don't really think about these things, or I've always been about other people. Now, I'm not here to argue with you whether you care to serve other people or not, but if you think that you only have time, energy, and resources to serve other people but not yourself, you are actually thinking in scarcity, thinking that there's only one or the other. You can't have it all. And that likely will show up in other areas of your life. You can either have money or romantic relationship, or you can have romantic relationship, but you have to sacrifice your health or your family relationship. You are making trade-offs that are absolutely unnecessary. On top of it, these are based on other people's illusions that you do not need to adhere to. These have been passing around like viruses over the century, over the millennia. Humans have these mental viruses of, I can have this, but not that. That is what we call real limitations. Now, if you actually want to experience freedom, it starts in the mind. And most people have no clue that their mind, they are in their mind, they have been enslaved and that they're in prison. And the reason is they have these boundaries that keep them in that little box of 126-bit of scarcity, and they stay there. Even if you have tons of money, even if you have tons of whatever it is, the problem is in another area of your life, if you don't free yourself truly, you have a mind prison. Now, what does that mean for you? It means that if you truly want to experience real abundance, real freedom, and all that life has to offer and more, and be able to serve other people and create wonderful things for society and benefit our global society, if you really want to do that, you need to be willing to let go of your old 126, your old filtering system, because that 126 is filtered by your mind, your subconscious mind. If you are willing to change that, you are then able to create impact, happiness, abundance, level of success that look, you may already be very successful as you're listening to this, but there's always another level, right? There's always more. There's always more. Just when we thought, how long ago was it when we said we don't need more than 64 kilobytes of memory in a computer? How much do we have in our phones now, right? It's not about having more, and it's not about not being satisfied with or feeling happy with what you have. It's about the infinite nature of our universe and the infinite nature of our being. Why would we choose to simply stay in a box? Now, it's not so much of, am I worthy of love if I don't achieve more? Because some people will go and achieve more simply because of that. But what I am asking you is, how curious are you about how far you can go, right? In this world, when you say, I don't need more, you don't need that, or I have enough, that's great. What I am saying is, you are probably thinking inside somewhere underneath that sentence when you say that you believe that it requires more sacrifice of time, energy, resources, or relationship, or some sort of trade-off in order for you to experience more success, right? You're like, I have enough, but I do want more, but I don't want more because wanting more means these negative side effects. What if I told you that's also a programming problem, not actually reality? That's subjective to you. You are filtering your reality based on that program. Therefore, if you make more money, like I said in the last episode, you find yourself creating these problems. What if we remove that formula, that program from your mind? As you increase more and have more abundance, you work less. What if by increasing more and more abundance, you end up getting more time, more health, more abundance, more options to help more people, creating greater impact and greater health, greater everything. If you can have all of these and more, why would you not want it, right? Now, it starts with a desire. The desire and then the design. It goes hand in hand. When you're designing your future, inside of the design process, you need to have great desire for something more. Yeah. Now, I'm not asking you to do more. I'm asking you to design more. There's a difference. Now, instead of being resistant to designing more, consider what if you could design something and it shows up. It shows up. You show up, right? It show up. When people resist the process of designing, it's because they're like, if I want more, I got to do more. That is unfortunately the slave mindset, the scarcity mindset. It's oftentimes what happens is they believe in order to get what they want, they have to give physically. They don't understand that the physical effort we put in is only there to compensate for what our mind cannot do or did not do. The more you master your mind, the less you have to do in the physical. Now, there's only one way to find out if that is true or not. However, it's pretty simple to consider that if your mind has the solution and the skills, the strategies, the more planning, the more goal setting, the more proper execution in the mind first, right? It's like building a skyscraper or simply building a home. Would you really buy a home from someone who doesn't have an engineering plan, a blueprint before they build it? They're just going to throw stuff together. Well, that's how most people live their lives. They don't have a blueprint. They don't have a design. They have no idea what they're getting into. They're like, I'll set a goal for a little bit, right? This is kind of vaguely what I want. It'd be nice. I'll try that. That is why the majority of the population are stuck. Their goals are vague and they don't have any ambition, not because they don't want ambition or that they don't actually have it or that they don't want massive, wonderful, magnificent events in their lives. It's because they think it takes way more than what they have. It's because they don't think that they can have it. It's because of a number of other programming issues. But I'm going to tell you right now, all human beings are capable of having absolute abundance. The problem is not abundance. The problem is you have too much scarcity program inside of you that's blocking your natural abundance to exhibit themselves. So this whole point of me saying all this is that it's time for you to start designing. Now, how do you start designing? You design these areas, these different areas in your life. And I'm going to start, and just going to start with 3. Your physical health and fitness. It's very important. Your body is very important. If you feel like crap, you're not going to really do that well anyway. You can have billions of dollars. It doesn't matter. Like the only thing you care about if you're not feeling well is feeling well, right? Preemptively solve that problem, solve it early, make sure you stay well, make sure you're healthy and strong. Second is romantic relationship. You've seen plenty of people that suffer from that. And it's oftentimes unannounced. People are suffering from relationship issues, whether it's with their family or romantically. That is one of the single most important things that you need to have dialed in. If you marry the wrong person, if you date the wrong person, if you're frankly, these people have so much impact because they're your environment. You're with them all the time. So it's important for you not only to choose wisely, right? Even family, like who amongst your family is going to lift you up, who's not. How do you negotiate that relationship to make sure it's beneficial? Making sure that your relationships are designed properly allows you to subconsciously and unconsciously behave in such a way that gets you what you want, even in your relationships. And then, of course, your business. Who are your clients? Have you designed them? Who are your investors? Who are your colleagues? Who are your employees? All the people that you work with, have you designed them? Or you're just like hoping that it happens, right? You are designed. If you don't design, you're still getting what you designed. And what I mean by that is if you're not designing, you're just getting the default. And if you haven't been too happy with the default and things have been unpredictable and that you know you're not really living your true potential, you've got to start designing. Anyone who designs their lives is going to have way more success than those who don't. Keep in mind that the design process will shortcut your way to success. And I don't mean that you don't have to do anything, right? And that it shows up. However, I will say it's going to activate your filtering system so that your 126 bits chooses what leads you to the outcome you've designed. If you don't have any design, your mind's like, what do I want? I don't know, right? It just takes whatever comes. And then people complain about what they have and they don't like it, right? Design them. And design is very simple. Every one of these categories, you can design 25 attributes of the ideal business partner, ideal investor, ideal customer, ideal family member. You can design 25 attributes. Yeah. Now, what happens when you do that? What happens is your RAS, your Reticular Activation System, will filter out the people that don't fit and filter in the people that fits. Now, of course, once you've started designing, you're going to notice 2 things. One is you will notice that you want to change, because to get your design, you may need to change not only who you are, how you think, what you feel. your resonance, your frequency, and even your behavior, you will notice signals from your mind saying you need to change, right? But if you feel things like, oh, you don't deserve that, you can't have that, you're not worthy of that, those are actually also still signs that you just need to change. If you change, you elevate, that whole feeling goes away. They're all signals to communicate something. It's a message delivery mechanism. Yeah. So you design something, let's say you really want, right? Or a relationship or whatever. Two things will happen. One is you're going to get this feeling you need to change. However, it expresses itself. Sometimes it disguises itself as you're not worthy or you don't deserve that. Sometimes it disguises itself as something else. So you need to be very keen. You need to be very, very, I would say, diligent about the design process of making sure you understand that, hey, if I feel something, right, I need to resolve some stuff. It's me. If you feel something after you've designed what you want and you feel inadequate, unworthy, or undeserving, it's simply communication from your program that you need to change. Yeah. If you feel really excited and all that, great. Take massive action, do the same. Now, the second thing that happens is that the external world begins to shift after you design. Yeah. Now, that's only going to happen if you do the work internally by, of course, designing and resolving what comes up. Because those things will come up, those feelings, again, I said, the feelings of undeserving or unworthiness or, that person's too good for me or that customer, that client makes way too much money. How can I work with that person? Whatever it is that comes to your mind, or even imposter syndrome, all of those feelings, it's time for you to understand that they are simply messages that are being delivered and that the message behind it has to do with your program. And inside of our training, we teach people how to resolve these problems. So when you learn to resolve these problems, you will notice the second part happens is people around you will change. And I don't necessarily mean just the existing people. There will be other people that will come into your space, in your world, that are exactly what you designed. They'll show up. So in simpler words, your reality is not a thing you necessarily create or do anything. It's that your reality is literally reflecting who you are. Listen to that again. Your reality is you. There's no separation between your reality and you. Many of us think, oh, the external reality and the internal. No, that's just for ease of understanding. There is no separation. Your reality is actually you. It is you. If you want to change your reality, you got to change you. If you feel inadequate towards a reality you've designed, that's because the programs inside that governs your identity are not congruent with your design of your ideal reality. So you got to change what's going on inside. And when you change that, and look, go back to the early episodes when I talked about identity, when I talk about how to create a change in your identity. When you do that, you'll notice people around you will change. Your network will change. People will come into your lives. And you wouldn't have to say or do anything for this to happen if you have truly changed. And that's the beauty, is that this shift, listen carefully, the 126-bit, you shifting from a scarcity to an abundance place within that 11 to 20 million plus bits of data, if you shift from one place to another, the actual experience of your reality will change and you will reap benefits that you may not expect. You may not be expecting, just thinking, oh, wow, I can change my mind and something will happen. Yeah. You can change your mind and your reality will change. So let me finish it off with this statement. It's not the things you want to do, but you cannot do that limit you. It's the things you never consider doing. It's not option A, it's not option B. It's not A or B, right? It could be A and B, or it could be the unknown C, option C that you hadn't even seen yet, that you didn't even know existed. If you can find the unknown, the not known, the thing that you didn't even know exists, that could be a solution that you need. So if your reality is not yielding what you want, or it's yielding part of what you want, it's time to examine your identity, and your design. Because if you're designing your goals, you need to design your identity, like I said in the first episodes. And then by doing so, you will find that your mind begins to shift. And in the following episodes, and we'll sprinkle here and there, and I encourage you guys to listen to as many of them as possible, because we're going to be talking about how do you shift that behavior in the external, right? When you consider your reality and or your so-called, as I was just saying, right, your so-called external reality, again, it's not external. So my job and my goal here through these episodes is to help you change internal programs that yields predictable outcome in the external. That is where you can begin to prove whether this works for you or not, whether this works in general or not. I am not interested in becoming, I'll say this in a matrix analysis or metaphor way, right? We didn't create this training or this training program or this podcast. We didn't create any of this in a way that, hey, we want to be the Neo, the one. I'm interested in helping you become the one. And in order for you to become truly the one, and for us to be your Morpheus, you need to understand that the so-called reality that you're experiencing is an illusion, and you get to control this illusion. You get to take charge and actually create the version that you desire by design. Because as you design it, it shifts your reticular activation system. And of the millions of thoughts you could be having during the day, why write down these ones, right? So when you begin to design your reality and write them down, you're going to find the most interesting, most outrageously awesome, most fantastical, most magnificent events beginning to unfold because you have edged it into the physical, the symbolic creation of your mind. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode.